It's at 3 Monday afternoon, and this is the bit where we sit down and have a longer chat. And in fact, my guest with us has been here before, and I bumped into him at the Suffolk show earlier in the year. It's Simon Whitehead from Pakefield Ferrets, and at that point he told me about a book that was about to come out. Well, it is here, just here. It's titled Ahead of the Game, The Catcher and the Rear, put together between Simon and Scott Rear. What a name. That just makes me think of the bird, but was he the chef?
Scott's did all the butchering, the cookering section, but he's a master butcher by trade, Scott is, but he just loves home cooking. And for you, this is sort of an ultimate ambition, isn't it? I mean, you've done from field to fork type things before. Yeah, I've done DVDs and obviously me rabbiting books and scribbles about the harvesting of rabbits, but what we wanted to do was get down what we thought was the definitive Bible on everything to do with rabbits, not from the restaurant down, but from the earth up. So a culinary delinquent like myself could pick it up, learn how to break down a rabbit properly and prepare and cook it for the family so it's edible.
And this is something that once upon a time anyone in the countryside could do pretty much, wasn't it?
They would do it blindfolded.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems we touch with the social problems of when the mother and grandmother or grandmother, granddaughter, mother, daughter, father, son used to go and prepare meat from a bone, whatever meat it was. They used to know how to do it and get the most out of it for a good meal. But as decades go by, convenience foods kicks in, and we all get a little bit lazy really when it comes to our eating habits.
Well, I'm not even sure it's lazy. I think most people just go to the supermarket and buy their meat and have no real knowledge about it, do they? And so no, that's never passed on from mum to daughter or dad to son or whatever.
No, and you're probably right. It's just subliminally, everybody's just doing it. Everybody's just getting caught up by the convenience drive-throughs. Everything's in a hurry, but they all find time to sit down for half an hour and eat it and drink it in the car park.
So take me through putting this together. It ends up with some amazing recipes, I have to say. I don't know whether you've ever had rabbit and traditional rabbit pie, but there are all sorts of things here. Lapin à la moutarde, so basically in mustard, I'm guessing, if I got that right. You've got rabbit and leek pie with suet crust, Worcester fried rabbit.
We've got a nice recipe from Truly Traceable in there as well, that I've got to mention, because they won the top award for the rabbit pie in the book. So yeah, big out to Lynn and Steve there.
Well, their pies are to die for, aren't they? You've got Jane Grigson's rabbit roulette, which is cheese, isn't it? Is that cheeses?
There's over 52 recipes in there, and Scott collated them. Some of them are his, some of them are from like Tim Adams, Truly Traceable, Kai Upperin from Game and Flames, Taste of Game, and the. It's been a whirlwind project, because it wasn't until the game fair at Hatfield House last year, 2017, that me and Scott said, well, we would do it. We talked about it a year before. You know, there's nothing like this on the market. The people that are writing books aren't of, say, the calibre of me and Scott in our separate professions. You know, there's some fantastic books out there from chefs and cooks and people and this and that. But what we wanted to do was not only talk about the provenance of our rabbits, but we wanted to talk about the provenance of the people who were writing about it. So this time last year at Hatfield, me and Scott said, yes, it's got to be done. So I come off stage helping another chef out with a demonstration on rabbits. And so a friend of mine, Carolina, this crazy Dutch woman, come up and said, you've got to get this on print. So we had a little chat, me and Scott, and we said, we'll do it. That was this weekend last year.
So you've done it in a year.
Yeah, and we then got in touch with a friend of mine to find somebody to do the nuts and bolts, the publishing, the graphic design. We knew we could get the pictures because Craig McCann is one of the top photographers, I think, possibly in Europe when it comes to my way of life, and along with other people, Nigel Hoos and myself, my friend Jamie, we all got photographs in there. But the quickness and the speed of it was the writing. So I sat down and researched all the historical facts. I've got a lot of the historical pictures, but I wanted to do it differently. I wanted it not to be a hunting journal or a rabbiting book. I wanted it to be something anybody could pick up. Nobody would be offended, but everybody would understand why we do it, why we harvest rabbits, how to prepare it. And it's not about making them turning them into liking it and wanting to do it. It's more about giving them the information to form an opinion, and then they can form an opinion on what they've read and not what they've been told to read. So come Christmas, Scott wanted to pack it all in because it was getting quite full on and stressful. So we talked him out of it, and by January it was all being proofread. So the pictures were done.
I gather you did the food bits in just a couple of days.
Yeah, we did. Yes, I had to travel because every rabbit in the book was harvested by me, and I did this because my moral compass wouldn't let me go to a dealer to get books written by a rabbit catcher about rabbits. So we made sure, great lengths. So I travelled over to Shrewsbury with a car full of chilled rabbits, and we went to a fantastic chef called Christopher Burt. And he cooked every recipe in 2 days. And then the butchery pictures were all done the morning prior to it. So basically a lot of work was crammed in 2 days for the photography, for the recipes. And then it was just a case of having a few little discussions about how we wanted it laid out and covers and colours. And as it turns out, the people, Paul Naylor from the designer, Andy Richardson, who put it together, done a superb job. Absolutely superb job.
It's a lovely book. It is. It's more than a recipe book, isn't it?
Oh yeah, this is what we try to get across to people.
Lovely photos of you out with your ferrets and so on. Lovely photos. It tells the whole story, which is what I think.
This is what we want. We want people to pick that up. And it goes back to the problems we have with our social uprisings where the rabbits were concerned. And then you've got the rabbits in Australia, and people don't realise the nutritional facts on rabbit and other game meats. And it's a complete guide. I think it's a complete guide rather than a cookbook or rather than a book about rabbits. This has got everything. And as I said, the feedback has been absolutely fantastic, and we are over 2/3 of the way to selling out.
You were in the right place yesterday for the launch, really, the game fair. So most people are on your side there to start with, aren't they?
At the game fair, we did the cookery demo there. We did plenty of interviews with the press and in the interview centre, and I was demonstrating there on the pugs and drummer stand. So yes, we were in the right place, but the secret is, like anything, loads of people can say they're interested. What we've got to convert that to is to £20 notes to buy it.
Yeah.
And that is whatever sphere, whatever profession you're in, that's the hardest thing. And that's what we're now working on. So, 75-80% gone. Hopefully within like a month we'll be sold out, and there's no reprint, so it's a limited edition.
So if people listening to this thinking, yeah, I want a copy of that, or I'd like to buy a copy of that for my dad, for my husband or whatever, how do they get hold of it?
Well, if they want them for a present or a Christmas present, they can go to either my website, which is pakefieldferrets.co.uk, or the awaywithmedia.com, where there's a page where you can buy it from all over the world. And at the minute, it has gone all over the world, bar Alaska.
Has it?
Yeah, it's gone.
There aren't many rabbits in Alaska, are there?
No, but you never know. If they're getting bored in their little substations doing the research, they might want to think about what they're doing when they come home. So, that's a little quest of ours to get it into everywhere. But at the minute, it has been almost all over the world.
It's so exciting for you. You pleased?
Oh, I'm dead chuffed. Yeah, no, it's gone better than we thought it would do. So when we sell the last one, that's when we'll be really happy.
So have a look at Simon's website. Just search for Pakefield Ferrets and you'll find it. But the other address is awaywithmedia.com. Awaywithmedia.com. So you could find that and order it and get it sent anywhere around the world. Ahead of the game, the harvest, preparation and cooking of wild rabbit. Key question. Did we do these last time you were here?
No, we didn't do these.
That's a while ago then. So what's your question?
Which is the worst job
you've ever had?
Job or task you have done?
Ever.
The worst ever job I have done. Right then. When we moved down here when I was 14. And when I was 16, I started to train as a gardener. I worked in a garden centre and went to Otley College. And my placement was a place called it was Early Dawn Nurseries then. It's a big store now in Rushmere, outside of Lowestoft. And because I was the youngest and thinnest, I had to get up on a ladder, and you know these massive, great big greenhouses you get? There's gutters going all the way down the middle. I had to clean the gutters out with a little brush. But there was no safety barriers. There was just glass one side, glass the other.
and you up a ladder?
No, I'm on the gutter. I'm
walking. So you actually have to walk
I had to
on the
walk
gutter?
all the way down the gutter, down these greenhouses, which must have been like 150 yards long. And that was awful. Absolutely awful. And that must have been, because I don't like heights, and all I could think about was crashing through the greenhouse.
I don't think they'd probably be allowed to do it.
I don't think they would now, but it was a different era then. But that was the worst ever job.
And you survived. Thank goodness for that, eh? We'll come back and talk more. And it's fascinating the way that Simon has made... I mean, you were sort of a townie in a way, weren't you? I was to the countryside.
I was brought up in Teesside.
Yeah.
None of the family hunt, shoot fish. And for something, when we moved to Lowestoft, something just ignited. As I said, I wanted to train. Originally, I wanted to be everybody wants to be a gamekeeper, and then you find out what a hard life gamekeepers really have. So that soon went, and then I went to Watley College and I worked on a lovely market garden in Hatchiston, with an old farmer called Nobby Clark, who originally come from Middlesbrough himself, but he's a Suffolk bloke. He was from there, and that just blossomed my love for ferreting. So I started off on the cliffs at Pakefield, where the dairy was. Which is no longer there, near the rifle range, and it just went. Even when I started with one ferret, and I knew in my head this is what I wanted to do. And when I looked at the books that were out at the time, even then you were thinking, you can do better than this, because they're not written by people who do it; they're written by people who can write. And there's a big difference when you read between the words of any publication by somebody who was a clever wordsmith, or somebody with the passion and authority, because that's what they do. And it just got to a stage where I started to promote ferrets and ferreting, and there was a crossroads.
So my sofa guest today, Simon Whitehead, and in fact, you're into football, aren't you? But I'm not Ipswich or dare I say even Norwich.
No. I'm a Borough fan. For me, sins. It's genetic. There's two things you can't argue with: fate and genes. And if I'm a Borough fan, I'm a Borough fan.
And that's where you grew up to start with, isn't it? That's how you can. Yeah. So you can't. I
used to go up there as a lad. I actually helped paint all the old Urson Park on my school holidays, and we just went everywhere with them. But yeah, it was a different world then. But yeah, I'm a Borough fan.
A Borough fan, through and through. Cut him in half, and it'll say that in the middle as well. But I gather you have had a brush with Carra Road.
Carrot Road, yeah. Well, not actually there, the training ground, because years ago when I worked for a pest control company, we used to get these odd little jobs, and if it went into rabbits, it was normally with me. So we did a little bit. On what was their new training ground, where it's all artificial pitches and stuff, and they had a few rabbits that were digging it up. And we've done lots of I have training grounds and just normal football pitches, because if you have a little scrape down the wing and people need to be in shoe to play now, they're in trouble. So yeah, running tracks and heliports and
that's all you need is some rabbits there digging their little scrapes.
Yeah, scrapes, and you're running down the wing about across it, and you break your ankle. You're not going to be a happy bunny, are you?
No, well, they're not a happy bunny either after you've been in with your ferrets either. So my guest with us is Simon Whitehead from Pakefield Ferrets. It started off with ferrets, but now it's more than that's sort of the name of your business, isn't it? So DVDs, books, a lot, really, isn't it?
We started in the 90s. It started off as Pakefield Ferrets, and it just stuck. But now, I'm one of the last few traditional rabbit catchers in the country that solely rely on rabbits for income. But I have diversified a bit and made the media a large part during the summer when I'm not ferreting. And then I've taken the chefs out for TV. As you said, I've done books and DVDs. I write for magazines like the Shooting Times, and I've been in all the newspapers because of how I do what I do. And the core element of what I do is about the rabbit and the provenance of the rabbit. So I'm just trying to get the message across and ensuring that I can do what I do and support the family, because we've got Jules and Grace, and me and Jules have been together for 30 years, and without her I probably wouldn't be able to do half what I do now. So
And Grace, of course,
Grace,
your daughter. Both of them sitting in our green room listening at the moment.
Grace is shrivelling with embarrassment as we speak.
Both of them had a quick tour around BBC Radio Suffolk as well. But and that focuses them on making sure your business is successful, because it must have been quite a risk deciding to step away from a day job, because you had day jobs, didn't you?
I'd worked for people and done what I've done, but at weekends and when you can, and then you just, as I said, there's two things you can't argue with: fate and genes. And since I first was ferret, and I knew that's what I wanted. I read about it. The world was different then. We didn't have the internet. We had red telephone boxes. We travelled about, and the world's a different place.
We had Encyclopedia Britannica and those sorts of things. Yeah.
There was no Google or anything.
No.
So I decided that if I can do it. So we started demonstrating, and then I started rabbiting, and once the farmers knew that I was doing that, then that come on board. And then the same with the media, and what they'd like was the fact that it's what I do. So when I'm writing about it or talking about it, it has got a bit of kudos to it, because it's
got provenance, hasn't it, as well, in a way, because that is what you're doing.
That is what I do. So the media side of it is almost run away with itself, because I'm doing 32 odd shows in the summer all around the country. So I do all the large ones in Scotland and England.
So is that like at the Suffolk show where you go and demonstrate?
Suffolk show, we go and demonstrate, and we just come back from the game fair, and the writings. I've got an article every 3 weeks, a film every 3 weeks. I won an award at the film festival in May in Harrogate for me film ahead of the game, and everything is just, it's ticking along nicely. But because of how I am and my nature, I'm never happy with anything, so it always can be bettered. So my films can be bettered, my demos can be bettered, your work ethics can be bettered, and I don't think the book can be bettered, but the next project we do will learn from our mistakes and hopefully correct them.
Tell me about your award-winning film then.
Well, I made this little film. There was a DNA film festival, which was the first hunting film festival in England, and that was held at Harrogate at the Northern Shooting Show in May. And I entered a film called Ahead of the Game, which was basically an advert for the book to say who I am, why I do it, and about the butchery and the cooking. And I spent a lot of time, and a friend of mine, Darren Rogers, and Nigel Housden, and Sutty, the mole man from Lowestoft, we all helped me get it together, and I edited it and got it together and put it in, just hoping to be shortlisted, because I was lumped in the professional category because I get paid by YouTube for my films for shooting times. And when I got there, they didn't announce the shortlist, but we knew something was up, because they were all very pally and like the film and this and that. And then when we actually sat down, there was 100 people and we watched it on a big screen. The actual competition, I didn't win. The professional, and the prize was a rifle, but MOTV, which is a big American hunting channel, worldwide hunting channel, they did a bursary, and there was 3 categories, and I won the best upcoming film. So I had a nice little prize of £3,000 come back, which I bought a big computer now, and it's going towards better cameras, and I was absolutely speechless, because I just didn't expect it. Because there was superb films from all around the world entered in this competition. But again, what they liked was the fact that the story was exactly what you do. So and that can be seen on my channel, on my YouTube channel, on my website. And I was chuffed a bit with it. Is
it quite hard then to balance that, to not let the media side take over and to still carry on doing the basic ferret work?
Well, the ferret work's changed because the rabbit population's slightly troubled by new diseases. I'm doing a lot of work with conservation people and doctors from the universities on research of rabbits. So I'm not just now ferreting to control rabbits, I'm almost teaching people how to look after rabbits as well. And with the media side, I've got to be careful, because one of the things I don't like is when I go around watching other things, there's a lot of charlatans that pretend to be one thing for the public, and then in private they don't even pick things up or do things. And that's what I don't want to become. I don't want to go around the country saying I'm this.
You don't want to talk about it and not do it.
And not do it. So in the winter time, luckily there's no shows in the winter, so that is the time when we're rabbiting, and I've got a good team around me. As I said, I've got great family, good team, good friends, and they keep you grounded. So I think that's going to keep me grounded.
So take me back to your first ferret. So here you are, so 14, you came from Cleveland, wasn't it? Down to Suffolk with your parents who moved down here. And you'd got this idea, you wanted to not just live in the countryside, but you wanted to do it for proper, didn't you? So proper rural things. Yeah,
well, I started ferreting on the Pakefield dairy. My first ferret was a big nicotine white orb, jaws, big, horrible, nasty thing. And we just learnt from there. And
so what would you do on the dairy farm? Was it rats and things?
Rabbits.
Rabbits. So rabbits. So you're keeping.
So we went
the rabbit.
We went rabbiting there with various old characters, and then as you progress, you get more ferrets, you get more permission, and it's the mindset. And my mindset even back then was if I saw a rabbit go in, I wouldn't leave till it comes out. And I used to drive everybody nuts because we were there for fun. It wasn't meant to be hard work or a chore. And as I said, it was a sponge-like brain attitude of learning more about how to get in better nets, better equipment, how to get the dogs right, how to get the ferrets right, get the ferrets fitter and healthier and more mentally astute. And it's just took me onto so many tangents. So I can look at religions, industries, cultures, and cherry pick training ideas for horses or animals or children or anything. If I think that will help my ferrets or me, then I'll use it. And if it fails, I don't use it. If it works, it keeps. And that's helped me as well, because you can imagine doing a job which was your hobby, everybody else's hobby, who they want to do as a job. You can visit some dark places, and you can get you get their stigma attached to you because you're doing what everybody wants to do, but they don't want to do what you do because it's hard work. If you can understand that, and that's something that you've got to get your head around very quickly, because not everybody's going to like you because of what you do. They may like what you do, but there's always this hint of jealousy.
Because they're jealous of what you're up to, even though they don't.
But they don't see the
it.
struggles. They don't see the lack of holidays, the struggles, the long hours, and that's what we've got to try and get across nowadays.
And then, so over the years, you've developed your techniques. You've learned how to do this. And for those who don't know, so because I know you've been on the show before and explained quite early on when you were doing this. So when you go out rabbiting with your ferrets, explain how it works for people.
Basically, the ferrets are used as a bit like the ferret is a furry domestos. It's a flushing agent. And the rabbits, because they live underground in the rabbit warrens, we use the ferrets to flush the rabbits out, and then we catch them in nets. And because we catch them in nets and dispatch them humanely, efficiently and quickly, we can then have a pristine carcass which is used for food. So every rabbit I harvest goes for food. If it doesn't pass my grading, it goes for animal food. And the ferrets have little tracker collars on, so we know where they are. They are looked after very well at home. They're carried around in ferret boxes. The nets are suitable for the land we're working on, but a lot of it is your mindset. You can suss a place out very quickly, and then you know what nets you need to use, how many ferrets, if it's going wrong, how to correct it. And that's how I gauge things, not when it's going right, when it's going wrong. Because when it's going wrong, you've got to act. It's a bit like we're going back to football. Ferreting and football have run down similar lines over the course of history. The ferreting and football share similarities. The season's longer, the pressure's there, you're in the result business, you need a squad. If your star player's not working, hoof him off, get somebody else on. But what you need to have is that skill of having a skeleton of experience in your squad, and then picking the exuberance and naivety and enthusiasm of youth and placing it next to experience, so you get a seamless transition.
So are you Paul Hurst or are you Mick McCarthy?
Well, I'm hopefully Pulis. But Sir Alex Ferguson was a master at this. He could pick a 16, 17-year-old lad, put it next to a 30-year-old, and he wouldn't know which one was which. Yeah. And when you're working with animals, you are only as good as those animals. Do you find it hard work explaining to people that and we've always eaten things like rabbits, haven't we? And that you are doing it humanely, as you say, and that it's not this cruel thing to do. Do you get people challenge you? All the while. And I've had, in fact, I had a really lovely conversation with a group of vegans at the weekend. And because they were interested with the philosophy of what I was talking about in my demonstration. And I thought I was in for a hard time, obviously because, you know, they were vegans. But when I was explaining to them about their world and my world, and how for their diet, miles of hedgerows and square miles of forestry, there's a bigger body count for a vegan diet than there is a meat diet. But they weren't interested in that. They wanted to know what happens to the rabbits. And when I was explaining to them about where the rabbits went and what forms we were cooking them, they then went even further, and they were agreeing with us in the end that the days of being a stereotypical outlook on game and animals is gone. So if you put a rabbit up in its fur in the shop or carried it around, people aren't going to, you're not going to entice them into eating it. Put them in a form of meatball, burger, sausage, as you said, there's loads of recipes in the book. Then people will try it without realising what it is. And I think in this day and age, if we're to get the message across of what we're doing, to give people a chance to form an opinion, we've got to move with the times. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm yet to see somebody that's going to turn down a bunny burger.
I know, because that was your first start, wasn't it? The bunny burgers as well.
Yeah. So whatever diet you have, and you respect the people for those diets, you know, because we're there giving them the chance to get that information and education, they went away. Our job's not to get them to eat it. Like I said, they had a vegan diet, but they were really happy and really helped. You know, they couldn't thank us because I took the time to sit there and go through the pictures, because I'd watched the demonstration. They'd been there for half an hour in the sun watching the demonstration, and they just couldn't quite fathom all to get why work this hard for just that rabbit. And then when you said, well, I've got to do this job anyway, and like these people, they may have had a moral dilemma about what I do, but I answer that dilemma by putting it in a food sense, and by getting this pristine carcass, then I can get it on the table. And they then started to understand, you know.
So the rabbits need controlling.
The rabbits need controlling
anyway. But you're going to do it in a humane way.
Yeah, and we don't use poisons or toxins, which is good for the environment. And then because we're controlling the rabbits in such a way, the rabbits then go for food. So it's a win-win situation.
We're going to. Walter's got a question about his lurcher pup, which I'll read to you in just a minute or two. But you have to do another key question. They're all the wrong way up at the moment. You could have a peek. Can't have you cheating and peeking.
Oh, I've not got my glasses on at the minute, so I can't see anything.
Do you want me to read it for you?
No, they're not that bad. I can... What has been the best bit of your day so far?
That you can tell us about.
That I can tell you about. The best bit of my day so far was on the way down here. We come down the A12. I travel down the A12 quite a lot, yeah. And we've always got to go past the Darsham station. And there's an unwritten route.
It's the halfway point,
It's a halfway point. You can never go in the Darsham station without getting a bit of food. So the best piece of my day to day was having these lovely steak bakes with Grace on the way down.
Simon Whitehead, Pakefield Ferrets, is my guest. His latest venture into various media forms is his book Ahead of the Game, The Harvest, Preparation and Cooking of Wild Rabbit. He's already sold 3/4 of the book, so if you want a copy, you need to get your skates on. Have a look at his website. Go to the website. It's called awaywithmedia.com, awaywithmedia.com. I'll put a link of Simon's website. Have you got a Facebook page? You have, haven't you?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
I'll link it on my Facebook page, and then people can get that way. So what's the future hold? I mean, more media? You're going to be a film mogul?
Like to make some money.
Yeah, so, well, that's the thing, isn't it?
And the starting to look for a bit of sponsorship for a vehicle to get us around the country. Maybe another book, maybe another DVD. We were talking about doing a DVD version of the book, you know, so it's a visual thing as well. I want to build the website up a bit more, get more rabbit work, just generally make sure I'm busy. So we've got a lot of projects planned for the winter, but what I already do now takes up a lot of time. So I've still got my rabbiting contracts, I've still got my articles and my filming to do, but I think they will be, you know, we've had offers to go and film and ferret on a tiny Swedish island full of rabbits, or go over to Malta and see how they do it with the pharaoh hounds and the ferrets.
That'd be really interesting as well.
But we've now just got to try and get sponsors to try and pay for, or magazine outlets to pay for it, because it all costs. I could literally.
You've got to earn a living.
Yeah, I could literally, from invitations from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, I could just go off and just ferret around the world, which sounds great, but you've got you've got a life to live and things need to be paid. So
it's not that easy.
No. So we'll have to wait and see.
You're not appearing on, because you've been on things like Country File. Have you been on Country File?
We've been on Country File, Country Live. We've Jimmy Doherty out a few times for his Jimmy's Wood and the British Food Revival, and on loads of things. But generally nowadays it's in cycles. Rabbit at the minute. It's not been on a lot of programmes. You know, we had a mad few years where it was on every programme, and at the minute I think it's like venison and pheasants, but it'll come back to rabbits. So who knows?
I've had a message through from Walter, which I don't know whether you can answer or not. He says, when should I introduce my lurcher pup to rabbits?
Well, lurchers are funny dogs. I mean, I've had lurchers for years, and what you don't want to do is introduce any dog to live game without having the obedience and maturity settled in. So unless you can stop your dog and get it back, you don't want to introduce to anything. So with a lurcher, it's generally when it's around 10, 11, 12 months, the joints are fully formed, the diaphragm's puffed out, and it's starting to mature, because lurchers are different animals than spaniels or labradors. A good lurcher doesn't mature till it's 18 months, 2 years old. The obedience has got to be in there before you let it loose, because if you let it loose and you can't get it back, you've got this heat-seeking missile running about doing what it wants. So you've got to be responsible. So I would say, depending on the cross, before it's introduced to rabbits, it must be stock-proof, biddable, returns.
So if you say sit and stay, it'll sit and stay, regardless of what's around it.
And you want it to avoid and ignore sheep and everything else, and be able to call it back, because you'd be amazed, irrespective of what dogs are, they just can't call the dogs back. So I would say roughly 12 months, but make sure whatever age, that obedience is in its head, because once you let it go, then there's no coming back.
That's the prime thing. Final key question.
Right then, what's this one?
What's your final one?
Which is your favourite film?
And you're not allowed any of yours.
I don't really watch a great deal of films.
When you were a kid, maybe?
Well, I'm definitely not going to say Watership Down. Or Peter Rabbit. Favourite film? What film do I really like to watch?
Any Christmassy ones?
No, I tell you one of my favourite films, and a lot of people won't even have heard of the bloke. There's a gentleman in America called Donnie Vincent, and he's a big bow hunter and fisherman and rifle shooter. And he makes, or him and his company Sick Manta make some of the best emotional and atmospheric films you ever want to watch. Irrespective of what they're doing, these people will chase a single deer around for 3 years in the middle of nowhere, and then walk away from it. They just take you there. And I would say, in the last few years, my favourite film would be The Rivers Divide by Donnie Vincent.
Okay, we'll have to go and have a look. It's lovely to see. Thank you so much for making the journey down.
No, it's been quite nice going and see the waterfront and a bit of food in Ipswich, and now we've got to hightail it back to the real world and horses and food picking. You can always
stop for a cup of tea.
Not at Darsham, but now we've got to get back to the horses now, so we're banned from Darsham.
Thank you for coming in. It's Simon Whitehead. Look out the book, Ahead of the Game, The Harvest Preparation and Cooking of Wild Rabbit.